Hello and welcome. I'm your host, William Liu. I'm joined by co-host Alex Wong. This is the Hello and Welcome podcast presented by Betway. Make sure you follow Hello and Welcome wherever you listen to podcasts and also are on social at Hello Welcome Pod. Make sure you drop us reviews and likes and all this kind of stuff. Actually, you know what? Listen to the episode, and if you really liked it, then write the review because we don't want to just ask for something up front as we always do. Raptors are 2 weeks into the season. They are headed out for a West Coast road trip. This very young team right now, as of recording, is 2-5. And I just wanted to check in with Alex Wong about some early season Raptors trends and also just look around the league a little bit because, a couple of teams have really gotten off to bad starts. And we'll get to that in the second half. But what's going on, Mr. Steven LeBron?
Hey, what's going on, my brother? Excited to talk to you about the Raptors, 2 weeks into the season, even though the record is what it is. I think there's actually a lot of excitement for fans watching this team right now, and for us just looking at a lot of different bright spots on the roster. I think compared to the last few years, there's just like a breath of fresh air, like when you're watching this team, watching these different guys from the rookies, from guys like Gradey making a jump, which I know we're going to talk about. Yeah, it just feels very different from the last 2 years, I would say.
I mean, once you actually have a stated direction and then you sort of follow along that plan, it's a lot easier for people to follow along, right? Rather than like before it was, we're going to try to win, but clearly that team didn't really have like a huge winning ceiling. Like maybe they make the playoffs, but then if they make the playoffs, like they're probably not going to go more than 1 or 2 rounds at most, you know? And then it was like, do you sign everybody? And it just was like, it just didn't really hit, you know what I mean? And obviously that group has been moved on from. But no, when you announce a rebuild and then you actually see progress towards it, like I think, not to say this is the best case scenario, because I really think that like the excitement would be at an incredible level if the Raptors had taken a couple more of those games. Like if they beat the Denver Nuggets really early, that's a huge win. Or, even if they beat Charlotte, or I guess even completed the comeback against the Lakers, which would have been cool. But like even beyond that, it's just the excitement of the young guys, right? And that's probably my first like early season takeaway. And I got 5 of these right now for us to talk about. The first one is just like these young guys actually taking tangible steps and making you really excited because, there's one thing when you see the rookies come in and, it's like, okay, let's see where they're starting at and where they could potentially go. But when you have players like Gradey Dick making a jump, RJ Barrett making a jump, Ochai making a jump, like all of a sudden, you have this baseline to compare it to in terms of how they were playing at their previous stops or last season with the Raptors. And yeah, I mean, Gradey, I think, is the big takeaway here. He's averaging 21 points so far through 7 games. He's shooting 47% from the field, 37% from 3, 93% from free throws. Would love, for example, for the Raptors in close games to just try to get it to Gradey as much as possible
Not
in those
RJ?
intentional fouling
Yeah.
situations. RJ, he probably will end up shooting a lot of those, but yeah, I think 93% is a pretty good number, and I would trust with that. But yeah, I mean, I think with Gradey, like he's showcasing this like super aggressive scoring mindset, and of course, like there's a question to be asked, like, can this be sustained once the Raptors get healthier, if the Raptors ever do get healthier? But even just knowing that he had this level, like for me, I don't know for you, Alex, like I didn't think he would be already here in year 2, and yet we're seeing something like really, really exciting with Grady.
Yeah, this is like the pleasant surprise of the season so far, and just comparing him to last season, he's just so much more aggressive on the floor, so much more decisive when he gets the ball. And it
Mm-hmm.
doesn't feel like he's hesitating at all when he's getting the ball, even taking like contested threes and even like mid-range game. There's just so much aggression to him right
Mm-hmm.
now. And I really like that. I feel like he really built off Summer League. He was showing some encouraging signs. I know he got hurt, so he didn't play too many games. But you're just seeing a player on the court right now that's super confident. And to me, he profiles as someone who I can see going forward just being a 20-point per game scorer. Like I don't see
Mm-hmm.
why that's unrealistic for someone like Grady. And I think with the Raptors moving on from Gary Trent this summer and really trying to fill that like starting shooting guard spot, this has to be like the number one bright spot for the team, because as you're
Mm-hmm.
starting to look forward for this team and like trying to fill in all these spots, if Grady's going to keep this up at this level, then you have your starting shooting guard of the future, and that's one less thing that you need to worry about.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think absolutely for Grady, like maybe last season, especially if you started as a rookie, like there was a lot of like his makes were from the corners. I think a lot of plays featured him standing in the corner, and then if he ever cut out of that corner, especially at the start of the year, he wasn't necessarily strong enough or decisive enough, or the timing and the speed of the game, he wasn't reading it, and he was just passing it off. Like you just never saw the kind of aggression you're seeing, like especially since RJ has come back to the lineup and Scotty's left the lineup and Emmanuel quickly has left the lineup. But it's like somebody has to score. Like Gradey has taken the most shots of anybody this season for the Raptors. And I just don't think anyone would have predicted that coming into, the season. Of course, you never knew that there would be so many injuries too, but the upshot of those injuries is getting to see Gradey in this different context. And like, yeah, I mean, you saw the Kings game, for example. There's lots of instances where I thought he was almost even over aggressive. Like he was shooting like anything that would come to him, but you saw him attacking like standstill too. Like not even just like he's on a curl, he has some momentum, and he has to step on his guy, and then he continues his cut and he gets to the mid range and pulls up, or he goes all the way to the rim and finishes. Like there were plays where the ball would just swing to Gradey, full stop, the defender's in his way, and then he would just like do a quick rip through move and just like drive and attack. So the fact that he made those two like baseline fall away jumpers, like those are really, really tough shots. And yeah, I mean, I thought that maybe, especially for Gradey, like the system would generate a lot of his buckets. And to some degree, it's true because the system obviously is going to encourage sort of like movement, and there's a lot of like playing out of the post and getting triple handoffs. But a lot of this is also Grady's self-generated offense, and I always feel like there's a distinction where if you can create your own offense, then you are way more valuable than someone who's just a finisher. For example, like that's the Pascal versus OG comparison I used to have over the years, and I feel like Grady's creating so much. And yeah, my question to you is just like, number one, is it for sure for you that like if the Raptors do get their full squad healthy, which right now doesn't look likely, at least for another month, but like if they do get their full squad healthy, is Grady in the starting lineup for you? And also, what option in the offense is Grady for you, given what we've seen so far?
Yeah, I think even when all the guys are healthy, like you have to keep Grady in the starting lineup. Outside of Scotty, like he's the guy with the highest ceiling if you're wanting to talk about like just the young guys on this team. And yeah, I don't see any reason why his role should change. Like maybe the usage comes down, but he's a guy too that he doesn't need the ball in his hands all the time. And I think
Mhm.
he's such a big moment guy too, man. Like just seeing him hitting like the top of the key three against the Kings late in the game, and like he's not afraid to draw contact at the basket too. He's really showing
Yep.
me a lot, man.
Yeah.
Just like as an offensive player, like with the shot making and everything. Like he's taken a huge leap. And I know again we're talking about like what the first 2 weeks of the season, but you're just
Mhm.
seeing such a different player that I don't see this changing. Like the shooting percentages might waver and stuff, but the confidence is there. I feel really high on Grady as a player going forward for the team, man.
Yeah. One underrated thing too, I feel like for Grady to improve on is just like continue to work on being effective as a screener. Because I feel like teams are now starting to guard him so well. Like the Kings, for example, before the game, Mike Brown says like, he's playing a little bit like how Steph and Clay were used in Golden State, which obviously he would know about because he was an assistant coach with Golden State for a really long time. Number one, that's a huge high compliment, right? And he also said that if there was a most improved player, like he would certainly be in that conversation, Mike Brown and Gradey Dick. But I think what was more telling was how the Kings came out and guarded him. Like it was the same stuff that they used to, guard the shooters like in Golden State, for example. They would top block them. They would sort of, basically stand between Grady and I guess the top of the floor. I said giving them sort of like the basket almost, but the goal and impetus there was just to like prevent him from cutting and moving. And I think that's just an ultimate sign of respect. But also when you get top block like that, like all of a sudden if you become a screener and you really, really master that aspect too, you create so much offense. Like if you notice late in the Kings game, they were running a lot of Spain pick and roll, which is just the screener action involving just like a regular pick and roll, right? And with Grady sort of coming off as a second screener, like that creates so much indecision when someone's standing in the way and like top blocking him. Like it requires a lot of communication to guard that. And so when you have that sort of shooting gravity, like I'm just excited for sort of like the ways you can fold in. Cause again, he's not a guy who need the ball necessarily to thrive. But someone else who's had the ball quite a bit is RJ Barrett. So this is now 3 straight games for RJ with 30
RJ
plus.
kidding me?
RJ kidding me? I feel like honestly, I've been thinking about that call quite a bit now because it's actually kind of hitting. So I maybe I have to apologize to Ennis.
Yeah,
Maybe children don't ruin
that's
everything,
a
but
two-time Canadian Screen Award winner right there, man. You better put
two
some
times,
respect
baby.
on two-time.
2 times, just like Hakeem. Um, but yeah, RJ
Nobody's
Barrett.
ever called Hakeem two-time.
Okay.
Oh my god.
What about 2-time NBA champion Matt Bonner, man?
Yeah, two-time right there, man.
2-time.
Yeah, Mr. Asha
With RJ,
Noodles.
oh man, we're gonna move to RJ Barrett. The fact that he's averaging, so right now, obviously, like he only played 4 games, I believe, since the injury.
Mhm.
And the first game against Denver, I thought he was a little rusty, but that's understandable. Since then, I think like he's just been consistently the main generator of offense for Toronto. He's averaging 28 since coming back from the injury. He's shooting 49% from the field, 46% from three. Unfortunately, only 68 from free throws, but that's actually close to his
We're
career
about to
average
get a
around like
50,
71.
50, 60 player. Is there,
55 free throws, 55 threes, 55 free throws. Like,
is there a precedent for this? Can we get the answer? Can you look into this? Talk to your sources. Like, what is up with the free throws?
what source?
No, but
what source can I possibly have
what
for
is-
why RJ's a weird
No,
free
but
throw
it's
shooter?
just what's up, man? He got a weird free throw percentage. Why is he around?
Well, I mean, I think in general he has like a bit more of like even the shot, like he shoots it a little bit low. It's the lefty thing.
It's
and, like,
just
you know
so
what I mean?
glaring. It's like when he's
Yeah.
going to the line in these late game situations, it just seems like
Sure.
it's like becoming a thing now almost.
Mm-hmm.
Like we've just
Well, I
seen
mean,
it so much.
I think with free throws too, like it's a confidence thing.
Sure.
Like once you identify that it's like a problem, like I think Pascal went through this too.
Mhm.
You know, like Pascal was like a fine free throw shooter most of the time, but then sometimes he would like really get in his head. Like I think at the start of last season, he also started like really going 1 for 2 all the time. I don't know. I think there's just like a reps thing, but also mentality thing, because obviously a free throw is something that RJ can make,
Sure.
like no problem. But in these big moments, I do think that it's starting to become a point of frustration. But like everything else that RJ has done so far to start the season has been
No,
really great. I think
incredible.
a big question was like, can he sustain what he did coming over from the Knicks? I think especially because of the circumstances of no IQ and no Scotty Barnes, but he's actually exceeding what he did with the Raptors when he came over from the trade last season. What do you see from RJ?
Yeah, man. I think it's just the continuation of what he was showing last season in terms of the aggressiveness. Like the 3-point shooting is still there. I think we keep waiting for that to come down, especially during his Raptors tenure, and it just hasn't. And again, I think same thing with Gradey. There's just a confidence to him. And yeah, it's interesting though, because I'm really curious to see like what it's gonna look like when he's out there with Quickly and with Scotty. Like, especially with Quickly, you know he's gonna get a lot of shots up when he's out there. So like what's that distribution going to look like? But yeah, I mean RJ's just continues to exceed expectations, and I think is a question that's asked a lot is like at what point do we just kind of raise the ceiling for who RJ is? Because I feel like we just keep talking about this like it's like some abnormal thing, but it just seems like this is just the player that he is here in Toronto.
Yeah, I mean, look, I think that would be incredible, right? And all of a sudden, like, if this is sort of like what you have, then maybe you orient more of your team around it. Like, one of my questions has been, why don't we play more pick and roll with RJ in general?
Sure,
You know what I mean? Because like,
I think it just goes to the bigger picture of the team of like, you know,
Okay.
they want to play obviously that ball movement, like spread the ball around,
Sure.
get everybody touches and things like that. And they're not in
Yeah,
a scenario where they're like, you know, game planning to try to like, not like not trying to win, but like they're just trying to see what their players are all about. So I don't see
That's
them
fair, yeah.
tilting the offense towards like any specific player like that.
okay, that's fine. But I mean, like, so last season when he came to the Raptors, his pick and roll usage was 11.5%.
Mhm.
Right. And he wasn't like particularly efficient. It was only like 0.8 points per play,
Mhm.
which like typically a good like points per play would be like closer to 1. So, 0.8 obviously is like below average. But he only used the pick and roll like 11% of the time as the ball handler. This season with the Raptors, and obviously this is with the huge context and the caveat of like there's been no IQ, there's been no Scotty, and also like, it's only been a couple of games to start the year. But RJ's usage in the pick and roll right now is gone up to 28.4% from 11.
Damn. Feel like I'm
Right,
I'm in
and, like
Kumon right now, man. But go on.
and the points per
Should
play
I
is
be taking notes?
1.16.
What is this calculus?
No, but like I feel like it's been encouraging watching him play in the pick and roll. I mean, the 3-point shooting is always something that like, can come and go with him. Right
Mhm.
now he's in a better stretch. Hit a huge clutch 3 against the Kings in regulation. But yeah, he continues to get to the rim in an incredible amount. I don't know, like in terms of the Raptors, like best natural scores, like where would you put RJ in that
Yeah,
sort
I
of
think
ranking?
I think RJ's up there. I think Grady's almost becoming that, ball don't stop principle of hoops. Like Grady's a
Mm,
bucket getter too.
okay,
No, like Grady
okay,
can get you a bucket, man. So
okay.
I almost think like in the best case scenario, like the Raptors could potentially like have like an offensive juggernaut roster on their hands. Cause if you think about it, like you before the season, you were talking about
Mhm.
hopefully 3 guys could average like 20 points. I think that was
Yeah,
that was on your wish list, right? When we were
yeah.
talking stats, like even with all the injuries, you look at Grady. I think Grady profiles as a 20 plus point scorer. I wouldn't be surprised if that's where he ends
You'd
up.
have to imagine his usage comes down though when
Sure,
other guys
sure,
start
but it
losing.
like
Yeah.
with the 3 point volume, if like he can be like a 40% around a 40% 3 point shooter, like I
Mhm.
feel like and RJ clearly has shown that. So yeah, to me, RJ's at the top of the list right now when you're talking about with the injuries, and even when IQ comes back, I think it's kind of between RJ and IQ because like Scotty doesn't really profile as like that type of player. I know the ball, like the
Sure.
offense can run through him like towards the end of games and stuff. But I almost feel like
Mhm.
when you need a bucket, like it's gonna be RJ and IQ, and then just Grady running around.
I mean, Grady running around is like an excellent play,
Yeah.
right? So like that's fine. That's the nice thing with Grady is you don't have to give him the ball. I think that the comparison that's interesting because obviously like RJ and Scotty are like two completely different
hmm
players. But like when there was no RJ and there was no Quickly and it was just Scotty as the only BBQ member, it was like, well, he was still only getting like 14, 15 shots at most, and there were still moments where it was like just the offense wasn't like aggressive enough, and the offense was really struggling. And then obviously now with Scotty out and RJ sort of being the lonely like BBQ member, like all of a sudden he's just like, all right, I'll just scale up my offense. And I feel like that's obviously it's partially to do with the skill, but also even mentality wise, like RJ's mentality is that he's going to be a scorer, he's a creator. Like just to throw one last stat at you, like in terms of who's driven the most drives per game in the NBA this
Mm.
season, right? Number one is Jalen Brunson
Yeah.
at 20 a
Yeah, he'd
game,
be driving like
which
crazy, man.
yo, he is the Knicks offense. Like it doesn't matter how many other players the Knicks bring in. Thibodeau's playing pick and roll with Jalen Brunson, and he's getting to he's driving 20 times a game.
Mm.
Second is Zion Williamson,
Okay.
which makes sense.
Yeah.
Zion's off to a really nice start. He's at 19.6. Luca afterwards 18.8. I mean that's Luca. Enough said. Fourth in the NBA right now is RJ Barrett at 18.8 drives per game. He's actually tied with Luca. He's between Luca and Shea in terms of who drives the most per
Yeah, that
game.
passes the eye test too. Like when you're just
That's
watching,
crazy,
when
man.
you're watching him play, it just seems like every time he gets the ball, it's like head down to the basket. Can I
Right.
get a bucket? Can I draw a foul? And
Mhm.
I'm seeing some better like playmaking from RJ too. I think even
Sure.
from preseason, like translating to a few games here. Because the thing with RJ is like I think I know now like what he is as a scorer. Like we know what he can do, especially in this expanded role. It's about pushing to see if like there's a more multi-dimensional guy there. And I think ultimately, if it ends up just being
Mm,
kind of like a bucket getter for this team, I think it's fine because if you're building the team around Scotty, I think Scotty always tilts towards more of a playmaking player. And like you
yeah,
mentioned, like
I agree.
even when the full lineup is there, it's not like he's the guy that's gonna like put up 25 shots a game. And Scotty
Mhm.
gets his shots in like different ways, right? Like I don't think,
Oh, for
yeah,
sure. He's a very versatile
yeah,
player. Yeah.
it's not the same as how RJ gets his basket. So like I think he's a very critical piece along with Grady to put alongside Scotty if you're thinking about like what are the offensive pieces that you can put around. And I think
Mhm.
RJ and Grady give you those different options. Yeah, I'm just really curious to see IQ too when he comes back. Just to see like how that
Yeah.
fits cuz like I just feel like he's going to be taking a lot of shots from these guys and what that offense looks like when they kind of come back.
You know what? I want to get back to that IQ
Yeah,
point
yeah.
because it is something I want to talk about. But last guy, Ochai. Ochai, look, he's averaging 12.7 per game so far.
Oh, chai, oh
Um,
my.
oh, Ochai, oh my man, I'm ordering the
Yo,
Ochai
what's
latte.
the chai on Ochai, bro? What's the chai, bro?
Yo, there's some sort of like Indian restaurant that's missing out a real opportunity to sponsor
Natural
Ochai. I'm just saying.
sponsorship every time we bring up Ochai, man. Come on.
Absolutely, it's literally in the
Yo,
name.
hit us up. Vivek Jacob, let me know. Yeah.
Okay. He's shooting 59% from the field, 45% from
59
three.
burgers.
He giving us 59 burgers, man. Yeah, he had 22 against the Kings. Like you know what? Like he was obviously really, really important in the game against the Kings. Um, I guess the only thing for me to highlight with Ochai is just like it felt like, and I said this a few times, but it felt like he was just like skating by on offense.
Mm.
Like it was closer to like almost like PJ Tucker on offense. You know, like when you ever seen PJ Tucker on offense, it's just like he's only sitting in the corner, and then if he hits the three, like he makes one or two of
Yeah,
those.
meanwhile
But
wearing
like that's it.
$8,000 sneakers.
Somehow he's got a new sneaker.
Those
every
shoes
game.
are dead stock by the end of the game, man.
Every PJ Tucker shoe is like, yo, he dropped 3 points in these.
He got LeBron toed in like the Air Yeezys,
He's
the
just
Red
changing his
Octobers.
sneakers.
Like, what are you doing?
There ain't no buckets in these. That's why he's changing every quarter. But that's where Ochai kind of felt like last season for me. Like he just wasn't visible on offense. And I thought it was kind of detrimental. And right now, there is obviously this increased confidence to take it to the rack, but also he's knocking on the threes at a good clip. I thought he knocked on those 2 threes in the third quarter. That was a huge swinging point in the Kings game. And just to highlight the difference from like this season versus last season, like he's already scored double digits in 5 of his 7 games. And I know double digits is like it's a low bar, but like last season in like 25 games, I think with the Raptors, he only did it 8 times total.
Yeah, no, he's clearly another player who's made a jump on the offensive end. And I don't know if you got the stats in front of you. I'm actually curious where the Raptors rank like early in the season, just overall in like offensive rating right now. Because I feel like a lot of guys have made a jump, and just watching this team, like they're getting a lot on offense from these guys, like these 3 guys that you highlighted. But yeah, I don't really have much.
Raptors are 11th on offense right now.
Okay, yeah, I'm surprised. I was expecting to be a bit higher too, just like based on watching them. It just feels like they're playing really well on that end. Yeah, I mean, they made the trade to get him. I know it was a bit, some people weren't too happy about it at the time, but that's another good development story. That's the thing about this season, man. Like even 2 weeks in, like we already have so many of these bright spots to pick from. And you know what? I gotta give a quick shout out to Chris Boucher too, man. Like I feel like he didn't play a lot last year, and he's just put up some monster games. He's brought the energy. I really like what he's bringing off the bench. So yeah, I want to give a shout out to Chris too for highlighting like bright spots early in the season.
Oh, absolutely, man. So that's the first takeaway. The second takeaway for me is just like, despite so much focus on like the defense, remember I told that story about like when we were at summer league and we're just hanging out by the tunnel, and Darko walked up and he was like, how are you guys doing? And then he's like, we just gotta like, all that complicated shit on offense is good, but like we need to really lock in and guard this year.
Yeah, and the team talked about it in training camp too.
They talked about training camp in summer league.
Never believe anything people say in training camp. I swear to God.
And like the Raptors come out and they're 30th in defense.
Right, are you shocked though? Like, are you shocked that this is kind of where they are right now? We talked about this before the season, and I think there wasn't really any reason to be like, okay, they're gonna make a jump. Like you can emphasize defense, but your team is your team. Like the collective whole of the team doesn't feel like it's there's like a great defensive team there.
No, that's fair. I think that like I don't think you look at the personnel and there's like that many strong defenders, right? If anything, like we've brought in strong point guard defenders right now in Davion Mitchell and Jamal Shed, and they've done a good job. Once again, I don't think point guards have popped off against the Raptors all season, and sort of a stat.
Raise that banner next to Vince. No point guards popped off in 2024.
Oh man, I don't think tears will be flying off my face like it was with Vince. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. To me, I did feel like they could stand to improve a lot defensively. And if you put a whole summer of effort into working on it, like you would like to see some results. And again, I know because people already like people just don't want to hear, but they only want to hear positives right now in the rebuilding season. And I get that to some degree, but if that's your stated goal and after 2 weeks you're 30th, like you're actually worse on defense now you were compared to last season, like that is something that's like worth monitoring. At least I think there should be some progress on that front. Granted, I did ask Darko about this, and he said that like he is seeing more ball pressure from his team, and he gave the the reasoning that Scotty also went out. That obviously changes a lot about their defense because he's like one of their 5, one of the 5 players on the team that actually plays defense, maybe 4, but. Yeah, I don't know. Like, I guess you're not surprised that the defense is 30th.
No, and I almost feel like the other versions of this Raptors team, like especially under Nick Nurse, it was always like a defense first team, and they would play like struggle ball on offense. Whereas they were grinding those games out, man.
Oh man, we were grinding.
Whereas now it feels like the roster is being built from a standpoint of like, let's see what the talent is on the offensive end. and then see if we can tilt this team more towards at least an average defensive team. And I don't even buy the excuse of like, oh, Scotty, it's because Scotty's on the lineup. I get that he's a critical piece on defense, but if you were preaching defense as an emphasis from training camp into the season, like if you actually really want to do it, then there has to be some accountability. There has to be just like adjustments that's made by the coaching staff to make sure that they're playing, that they're not last in defense in the league. To be honest, though, it's not like an immediate concern for me. We know it's
nothing is an immediate
we know
concern.
It's a rebuilding season. This is like not like at the top of my list of worries. I think once they find out what they have from this team from an offensive standpoint, especially with a full lineup, then they can figure out where those specific weaknesses are. Whether it's like getting another big or like, you know, shoring up the wings, or I guess Davion Mitchell and Jamal Shead is just going to lock up every point guard in the league for the next 5 years. Like then they can figure out those specific pieces, but
every other position can score, but not the point guard.
This is classic. Like this is classic when Nick Nurse is just like, their superstar is going to go 1 for 8. I don't care. We're going to bring 4 guys to trap James Harden at half court.
Daniel House, get ready to be the first option, buddy, because it's not going to be James Harden.
I'm not shocked, but yes, I would like to long term. I just think if you're gonna preach it, then let's see like some accountability for it, and it's just not there right now. Yeah,
no, I agree. That's why it's like you can always slap on like it's developmental. It doesn't matter injuries. So you can slap on excuses, but I care about what you actually do, even when what you actually do isn't like the main goal this season. I still care about it because I need everyone to care about that, right? And like, you know, like the increase in ball pressure. So if you're going to increase ball pressure, ideally what you're going to see is like you're forcing more turnovers at your opponent, right? Like that's, like why else are you pressuring the ball, right? Raptors are actually forcing the exact share of turnovers this season as compared to last season. It's 12.3% of their opponents' possessions are turnovers versus 12.2% last year. So literally identical. Except the big difference is the Raptors are fouling. Like they give up the 29th most free throws in the league. So the ball pressure is just leading to a lot of fouls. And then also the last couple of games, what you're seeing teams do, especially because, whatever, like these are more specific matchups, but, Sacramento has Sabonis.
He in the bonus.
He was putting us in the bonus, man. Like Mobo had 4 fouls in the second quarter.
Yeah,
like,
Mobo did. Who does Mobo think he is? Jameson Battle? Trying to foul out in 12 minutes?
I mean, like, obviously there's a young learning curve
to
this, so like I'm not surprised, but at the same time, it's just like, you know what? Like, I want to track how this goes over the season because you can't say that's a stated goal and then just ignore.
I just think it's really hard to like. You talk about guys like Mobo, like looking at the fouls that he was picking up. It was just like, oh, DeMar throwing his tricks at Mobo and like just drawing contact. When you don't have 5 guys out there that can play defense at a certain level, and you have a lot of these young guys who are like foul prone. And just like kind of not ready at that level. It is really hard. Like I'm not like defending Darko, but it's like it is really hard to like come up with any consistency on that end of the floor.
Sure, no, that's fair. You're also, by the way, not seeing like that much variation in the team defensively. You know what I mean? Like I think maybe again the context is like you compare it to what you had before with Nick. It was just like Nick was always like, okay, whatever. We got like some random players available today, or some players not. We're gonna throw up full court press or a zone. Like you're just not seeing that with the Raptors.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? Like maybe some like minor variation, but this is not a particularly innovative defense. I'm just curious to sort of to see how the defense goes. This NBA season marks the Raptors' 30th anniversary, and as the team's official beer partner since day one, Coors Light is celebrating by releasing 3 limited edition cans for Raptors Nation. Each is designed to represent an iconic decade of Coors Light and Raptors history, allowing fans of the North to unlock an era in every can. 30 years in the making, 1 can for every era. Now, for a limited time only, Canadians can purchase Coors Light Raptors 30th anniversary cans at select LCBO stores and participating bars and restaurants across the GTA, including select locations at Scotiabank Arena.
Check out EraInEveryCan.com. That's ERAInEveryCan.com to learn more about Coors Light and the Raptors and their long-standing history and the limited edition cans. Plus, fans can enter for a chance to win exclusive Coors Light Raptors prizes, including exclusive team merch designed by Coors Light through their partnership with Mitchell and Ness. So make sure you check out EraInEveryCan.com for more details.
My point number 3 is just like the 3-point rate is like very low to start the season, and this is something that Louis Zatzman wrote about over at Raptors Republic.
Big Lou,
But
my
yeah.
favorite Lou.
Oh, okay, all right. I talk dim sum with Samson one
Yeah,
time.
you go
and
to
this is
roll
what
song
happened.
with Samson Folk after, bro? Yeah. What's going on, man? You sharing
not,
chicken feet? Yeah.
not Blake Murphy's favorite restaurant in the city, but yeah, I mean, the Raptors are 29th in the NBA at 3-point attempt rate.
Yikes.
Obviously, like the NBA is just like jacking up threes.
Yeah,
It's
the
like,
game's
it's
dead,
going
man.
up again
Yeah,
this
the
season.
game's dead. Yeah.
The Raptors are just like, yeah, we're not necessarily going to do that. And again, of course, you can throw in the injuries in early season and developing. Like, we could just throw that on everything and just make everything okay. But I do want to track sort of how this season goes in terms of just like, are the Raptors going to be losing a math problem going forward? Because it's just like,
Why is
this is
this
just how the NBA is.
Why is this a Kumon Sunday class?
Surprise.
God, talk normal.
We go to Chinese class after this, Alex.
This guy's tracking it as a math problem. No, I get it.
No,
I get it.
You know what I mean, though? Like, if
get it.
everybody's playing shooting a bunch of threes
Well,
and you
this
basically only shoot
this
twos,
has been
you're going to lose.
this has been a recurring problem for this team. I think just finding enough outside shooting. Like, even you look at the roster right now, healthy. Like, how many guys are there? It's Gradey. Put IQ in there.
Yeah,
you put
RJ
RJ in there because like you go by his Toronto numbers. And then, is there anyone else? Am I missing anyone else?
Kelly, when he's available.
Okay, yeah, Kelly. But it's like you're not really bringing a lot of guys off the bench who are...
Jacoby's supposed to be a shooter.
Okay,
but,
but that's, again,
rookie, so I'm not expecting that much.
That's
right
like theoretical. We got to see it. So, yeah, I'm pretty surprised that the numbers are that low, but I wouldn't have expected the Raptors to profile as like one of the top 3-point shooting teams. Like, they don't have players like that.
They don't really have the players. And I think the point that you were mentioning with IQ earlier was a really good one. Was just like, you know, when you're missing him from the lineup, when he comes back, he's going to take some more shots. And like, how that's going to affect everyone else. I think it's also like, it's going to be replacing the type of shots that like Davion Mitchell and Jamal Shead have been taking. And I've enjoyed so much of what they've done on defense. No point guards are allowed to score in Toronto. Okay. But like, IQ is also like leagues above them as an offensive players. Like, part of the reason why the Raptors never take threes, and they're also not really they're like 28th in 3-pointers made and 29th in attempted. So like, threes is just obviously relative to the rest of the league, a much less share of the offense for us. But part of that is because, like, you know, between Jamal Shead and Davion Mitchell, they're a combined 11 for 53 from 3 this season.
Yeah, that's right.
Right.
That
and like,
passes
when
the
you
eye
look
test.
yeah, when you look across the league, like, where are teams getting their threes from? A lot of it's from their point guards.
Yeah, can we just acquire Peyton Pritchard? It would solve some problems, is all I'm saying.
Yeah, you know, honestly, yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, I think Peyton Pritchard by himself has made more than 11 threes.
Yeah, well, it is
no
interesting,
doubt.
like, thinking about the play style, too, because I think the Boston Celtics are almost the most extreme with this. I think more than 50% of their shots are from 3.
Yeah, and I don't enjoy watching that.
No, yeah, the NBA is cooked. We're going to have that conversation at some point.
Okay.
But, yeah, I just think, again, this is the roster construction. But, yeah, I would like to see it tilt better. Like, obviously, IQ, like you mentioned, is going to help. And I think, yeah, I wonder long term, like you mentioned, if this is like a sustainable thing. Like you mentioned, the offense is like near top 10 right now, even without the 3-point shooting. So
a lot of that's offensive rebound. Apparently, we're number 1 in the league in offensive rebounds.
So we're grinding,
which is
grit
weird.
and grind. And but I mean, there's always talk about Scotty potentially upping his 3-point percentage. Sure. Like what does that look like? Like, is there going to be a starting 5 where, you know, like, you have enough shooters on the floor, like credible threats from 3? We just haven't seen that type of team here in Toronto. Like, I don't even know what to go back to.
Well, even the championship year, which is obviously the year we had the most threes, like 3 shooters, like, we still weren't like a huge volume 3-point shooting.
Yeah,
team.
we've never been that team.
We're like a jack the threes up. By the way, I just looked at Peyton Pritchard because we mentioned it. This stat is blowing my mind. So Peyton Pritchard right now is averaging 11.1 field goal attempts per game. So he's shooting 11 shots a game. 9.4 of those are from 3 this season.
Yeah, easy money sniper over there in Boston, man.
Bro, what?
Yeah.
What kind of shot profile is
this?
No,
this is like Joe Mazzulla. This is Mazzulla ball, man. They just launch threes. And it works for them.
He's taking 9.4 threes and 1.7 twos.
Yo, the NBA, you just need to launch threes and have a good defense, man.
That's a 6-to-1 ratio. Like that. Like, Duncan Robinson doesn't do this.
I want Pritchard.
Man, This is
Yeah.
crazy.
All right, let's get more 3-point shooting. What's your next point?
Next point, number 4. Is this team quietly more competitive than we think? Because when healthy, like you're actually adding like areas of weakness to this team. Like, let's be honest, the backup center right now is a huge problem, right? Mobo sometimes does a good job of it. Bruno Fernando is like strict already. It was like, all right, this is just not going to work
I
out, man.
can't.
Like,
I don't want to see Fernando again, man.
I can't. It's hard for a bench player to get benched, but at the same time, Darko was like, "We're gonna try you out," and after 3 games, he's like, "We're not trying you out."
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and it was the right decision. But like, if Kelly ever gets over this back thing, like I think Kelly would certainly provide a lot more. Like clearly the defense is already 30th, so I don't think it can get worse. But at the same time, Kelly is a very skilled offensive player. That's going to help. IQ is going to help at the point guard position. We already talked about sort of how much this team really needs offense from that position. And then also, like, yeah, you bring in Scotty, who's the best player in the team, and all of a sudden you're looking at this thing like this team can be competitive. Now, granted, the injuries might knock them out so far back that like by the time Scotty comes back, it could be like, for example, like December, to start of December. It's like, well, at that point, like you might be like 5-25 or something like that. Okay, that's aggressive. Maybe 10-20, let's say. Like maybe that's too late to catch up, but this team is very competitive. Like I've actually really enjoyed watching all of these games outside of the home opener.
No, for sure. You even look at this week that just passed. The Denver game was super competitive. Unfortunate with the Scotty injury. The Lakers game, terrible start, but they bounced back, made it a competitive game, beat the Kings in overtime. But I think this is, even with a healthy roster, I think this is kind of what you're going to see, because from a night-to-night standpoint, they're still going to be giving these opportunities and giving these minutes to a Jacoby Walter, seeing what Jonathan Mobo can do off the bench. Like, I think there's just going to be a lot of these nights where they're just like trying to take a look at different lineups, giving guys different opportunities. So I don't see this team, even healthy, profiling as a team that could like go on a run of like, oh, winning 5 in a row, like winning 7 in a row. I think, and you mentioned, like, I don't know how many games in a row you can win when you're the 30th worst defense in the league.
That's true.
Right?
Yeah.
Like, that's not a really good formula to go on any sustained runs. I almost want to see, I think the team has really good energy right now. I think the way that they're playing on the court. And I want IQ and Scotty to contribute to that. Like, clearly you guys are the most talented guys that are coming back. But, like, I want to see Scotty. Like, Scotty talked a lot about, too, like, coming into the season, about wanting this to be, like, a young run-and-gun team, like, get out in transition and stuff. I want to see him leading that. I want to see that energy there, like, every night. And I want to see IQ doing that as well. But in terms of, like, I think this is classic for any rebuilding team, is when you look at these games, you can always flip a lot of these games. In terms of just like, it's literally the Matt Devlin, they're right there principle.
Oh,
like you can flip like couple possessions, talk yourself into the fact that like, oh yeah, they could be 4-3 right now and all this stuff. But to me, night to night, I think the record is going to be the record. I'm still not expecting them to hit the 30 wins that was their preseason over under. And I think night to night is just about kind of the play style, the energy, and like the individual development.
Yeah. No, I agree with that. I totally agree with that. But I mean, at the same time, like the key thing, the lesson from this past week was just like a young team needs to figure out how to like close leads and like close games.
And I think that's going to be an issue.
Maturity.
Yeah, that's going to be an issue the whole season, I think. Like, I think
no, you're right. And that's ultimately like they could be competitive, but they're probably, especially in close games, going to find ways to make more mistakes on their opponent.
Yeah, but
and that's the growth. It's just like getting these close games, so you learn these painful lessons of like these free throws are so important, taking care of the ball is so important, the way Darko uses his timeouts is so important. Like all these things that like pop in and out, like those are things for the young team that's going to have to learn. And if they take a lot of like whatever, like if they lose, obviously it's good because they get more lottery balls, and obviously the draft is going to be really good next year. And if they win, it's also really good because it's really validating for all these improvements that the team is making.
Yeah.
So, it's wins and lessons. Man. Wins and lessons. Yeah, we used to look down on wins and lessons. Now we're
I know Nick Nurse be laughing at us, being like, "Oh, these guys are setting the bar. This being a fun team." Man.
Yeah. Well, I'm laughing at the fact that the Raptors are actually 1 game up on the Sixers right now.
W's in the chat, baby. Let's go.
Yeah, Sixers being 1-4 is insane, man.
Oh man, don't worry. We'll be flying out to LA to talk to Keith Pompey about everything Sixers this week.
Yo, you know what? It's a good time to talk Sixers, man.
Great guest booking. All right, what's your last takeaway?
last takeaway is just, are there enough big picture wins? And I think that that's always something we got to remind ourselves watching this season. And at least based on what we talked about so far, I think that the agreement is there. Like, if you told me coming into the year, like, yo, we're gonna be 2-5, I'd be like, that's not a surprise given their schedule. Um, but you're going to see Gradey take this jump. You're going to see RJ continue sort of the leap that he's made and expand more of his offensive game. And you're going to see Ochai sort of be promising. Like and some of the rookies are actually like decent. You know what I mean? Like, obviously the rookies, some games are going to have it. Some games are just going to be completely out of it. But like, you've seen enough exciting moments from Mobo, from Shed, like from Battle. Even he knocked down those 2 threes. You sunk my battleship, but like,
Oh my god.
Matt Devlin, you want to try that too? You sunk my battleship. But like, I think big picture wise, those are good. The one big question picture I'm also looking at too is like, do you think Darko's like long term coach for this team,
We're
or is he
putting
more like
Darko on the
developmental
hot
coach?
seat.
No, I'm not putting him in the hot seat. No, no, no. I'm just
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
let's just assess. You know what I mean?
I think Darko can be a fine coach for a rebuilding team. I wonder. I don't know. Like, I need to see the roster get better and see how he deals with that. Because I feel like ever since Darko has come in, the roster has been in flux. Like, he comes in and all the guys get traded.
Fair.
It's a lost season. And then now this year, some of the guys are lost as well. I guess I would flip it to you in terms of, like, I know you had a chat earlier this season of like, oh, what are the qualities of like a good Scotty game, right? Like, in the same vein, it's like, what are the qualities that you're looking for in Darko that would tell you that he's the right coach long term?
Well, I mean, I think in terms of who the Raptors should have right now, or the style of coach should have right now, I think Darko is absolutely the right fit. Like, I have to say, like, that to me isn't really a question in my mind, because you need somebody who's going to be patient with his players, to try to help them grow and develop, give them
Yeah,
opportunities,
toss
unafraid of
him a
playing young
chain
guys.
after every win.
Toss him a chain after every game, like all these things. By the way, shouts to Kalani for building that chain. The thing looks really sick. Had that wand from months back, but didn't want to say anything.
Yeah,
But
I mean,
Raptors did actually make their plastic chain into like an actually gold custom with like diamonds and stuff. It looks incredible, honestly.
we get it. You want
We'll
a
see
chain,
how much
man.
they get to use it.
Just go ask Kalani. Like, we get it, man.
Okay, maybe I'm making that too. Maybe I'm making too transparent on that one.
God.
But I think like in long term, like when this team's ready to win,
Mhm.
I do want to see a coach that like has those innovative. Like, ideally, you get both. Someone who's able to develop
Yep.
and give opportunities and have the ear of the players, but also somebody who like tactically gives you an edge
Yeah.
in a lot of these games. So who like defines a play style and the team plays that, and that play style is innovative, it's fresh,
You want
it's
Nick
effective.
Nurse?
No, not necessarily, because like I think that Nick was really good on the defensive end, but
Yeah.
we never saw like much offensive innovation. I
Sure.
feel like honestly, Darko has actually brought way more ball movement and sort of passing into the Raptors offense in a way that I actually really like.
Mhm.
I actually like a lot of their after timeout plays. It feels like this team always like commits 3 turnovers, Darko calls timeout, and they come out and then they run like an actual sequence.
Ooh, the
and they get to the
ATO
rim.
god?
Their ATOs are like decent. Like, it actually calms the team
Yeah.
down. But
No, I
at the same time, there's things that I'm like the challenges. Like, I think he's like 1 for 7 on challenges or the season.
the challenges just
And, like,
always seem like they come at the worst time. Like, it's a challenge that you already know is
Sure.
is not gonna get overturned. My only question with that too is like, I know sometimes coaches are challenging because they just want to keep their top players happy. It's
that's fine.
it's a building relationship thing. But you got 11 assistant coaches in row 2, in matching outfits and matching sneakers. Like,
Right.
can we get some like collaborative effort on those too? Just in terms of
Well,
like,
I mean-
can it be a thing where it's like maybe some of those coaches step in, they're watching the plays and being like, hey, this maybe is not a good challenge.
They do have obviously a designated coach that's
Sure.
just like watching the game on an iPad.
Yeah.
But
can we just get a collaborative effort there? Because like, you have 12 coaches. You know
what?
There should be a
that
work
is fair.
environment where you're like enabled to like, you're enabling these people to be able to like speak up in those situations if they feel
That's fair.
strongly about it. Yeah.
And like, look, obviously the biggest measure of a coach isn't how well he does on challenges, right? Like,
No,
I
but
can already hear people being like,
it's sticking
"What are
out
you
like a
doing?"
sore thumb in the same way that like RJ's like missing those late game free throws.
Sure.
It's gotten to
Or,
the
like,
point where it's like pretty glaring.
if you set a defensive identity, regardless of what the players are on the court, like, I still will expect that identity to like at least show something.
I get
and of
it.
course, like, it's just been 2 weeks and there's been injuries, whatever. But like, for example, Houston was like a garbage defensive team. and they bring in Ime Udoka, and they're like top 10 for like half the season.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, so I do want to see like that step come out of Darko. Like, I'm not doubting Darko. I just want to see like, okay, the developmental stuff is excellent. It's great. But like the tactic stuff, the game management stuff, the terms of the setting, sort of like the overall sort of style for the team.
Sure.
I just want to see more of that, you know, like from him. Cause it's like, it's not a nothing year. Like this one, you say it's a developmental year, like you throw everything out the window and it's like, okay, then what's the point? Right. But like, I want to actually see some progress on that front. Like some creative, like, just solutions. And I feel like offensively, he's showing you a lot, right? But like defensively, I want to see that get better too. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
no, I'm on the same page.
That's all. That's all.
No,
I'm saying, you know?
I'm on the same page as you. I think you want to see that as the season goes on, and maybe it's too early in the season right now, you know, with the injuries already and all of that stuff to look at the defense and what it is. But if this is still the case by midseason, like towards the end of the season, then I think it does require like a bigger conversation of like what is actually like what the coach is actually doing with this team and instill in terms of like instilling these principles. Because I think you make a really good point. Like we shouldn't be able to just excuse everything of like this is a rebuilding year, so we're not going to care about that stuff.
Yeah, and that's not to say you have to win to keep your job. Like I don't think that that's the case for Darko.
No, we put Darko on the hot seat. Let's do it for fun. Yeah.
Nah.
Let's pull up the Betway odds of coaches most likely to get fired.
Darko's great. I love when he walks up to me before the game and he's like, you know, what coffee shops you going to and stuff. I'm like, you know what, I like that. I don't want to ruin that.
Yeah,
I don't want to ruin my coffee shop plugs.
Oh man,
I'm like, you been a Propeller Coffee recently?
Oh
Darko?
no,
like,
just get that chain from Kalani, man. All right, those were your 5 takeaways, early season trends. Please title it differently. We already did that with Javon Shepard.
We want to take this break in the podcast to let you know that we are partnering with Tangerine for this season. For people who aren't familiar, Tangerine is the official bank of the Toronto Raptors and its fans, and Tangerine is a foundational partner of NBA Canada and WNBA Canada. Tangerine is focused on growing the game of basketball in the country from the grassroots level all the way up to the pros, and where you will find a court, you will likely find Tangerine. And that's the mission that really resonated with us because we also share the same goal of growing the game of basketball here in Canada. What you need to know about Tangerine is that they are about forward banking. That means no unfair fees, no overly complicated products, no expensive brick and mortar branches. And if you want to learn more about Tangerine, go to tangerine.ca.
Before we wrap up, just a couple of notes here. Another Raptors note. Just want to take a moment here and offer an official apology because the Raptors did celebrate their annual Halloween party. Everyone got dressed up from players to executives, which we'll talk about. Was it at Casa Loma again, my brother?
Wouldn't Wanj know that?
Wanj has been wronged a lot, so this is actually the apology.
Charles Oakley in the room with us?
Oh my God. Never had to delete a tweet so quick. So what happened was I had reported last week per a credible source that Gradey Dick was spotted at a local Spirit Halloween picking up a costume where he was going to dress as a green pickle. So my source clearly was incorrect on this and jumped the gun because Gradey showed up as a green Teletubby? Is that what he was? Or what the hell he was?
I think he was like those toys from like Toy Story.
Okay.
You know, the green alien toy.
Okay, my bad.
But it could also be a green
my bad. Not familiar
also
with the Toy Story lore. I probably should be. I heard those are great films.
Okay. Yeah.
But yeah, so a
them.
little bit of misinterpretation there. You know, I did talk to my source. I did confront him. I did not.
Oh, him.
I did not punch.
Protect your source,
I did not
man.
punch or shove him in this confrontation, but I just wanted more details. And he claims that he did see him pick up a green costume, and I guess there might have been some misinterpretation, or possibly he did pick up the pickle costume and then decided to go and be a Teletubby as a second option. So once again, I think to journalism students out there and such, like always, double source your stories.
Double source.
Yeah, don't just So I deeply apologize for this mistake. And also, since we're here now, I did report in the first half yesterday that Charles Oakley was not going to be at Vince Carter's retirement ceremony because of passport issues. those were true, but it was just the minute I reported that, 2 minutes later, he popped up at Vince's retirement ceremony at halftime. But I stand by my sourcing on that. Charles Oakley arrived late.
Do you think he slapped the border patrol? He's like, you know who I am? You gotta let me in this country.
I wish they gave him the mic. That would have been a really good speech as well. So yeah, apologies as well. Also, if I have time for one more apology, also spotted yesterday watching the television broadcast, the Raptors Kings game, who I thought very visibly there was a hello and welcome shirt on the television broadcast. Somebody sitting
our merch was in the
100s, and I was super excited. And also tweeted out and had to delete this as well of, hey, spotted a hello and welcome fan on the television broadcast. Please identify yourselves. And you told me that it was actually Jake, who we work with. Shouts to Jake for representing hello and welcome. Just a night of blunders. A night of blunders from Wong.
Goodness.
So I think I'm going to take a little step back from just the reporting game. I think it's time. Yeah, it's time for me to, shouts to Jake from Better Collective. But yeah, it's time for me to take a step back. So I think I'm done with that. But Raptors did celebrate Halloween. And the only question I have for you is, can you please tell me what Bobby Webster was dressed as?
Oh, yeah, sure. So yeah, the funniest thing with the Jake thing is I saw him before the game because I was like, in the tunnel, just like talking to people and stuff. And yeah, Jake came up to me. He's like, "Yo, check it out, man!" And he was showing me the merch, and I was like, "Cool." And I knew he was sitting somewhere near courtside because you know what I'm saying, like,
shouts to BC Better Collective. Man.
But like he was courtside. So when you showed me this, I'm like, oh, I know exactly.
So what you're saying is me not being at the arena is really hurting Wonch this year.
I think Wonch does need direct access to sources. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, no, I'm gonna.
Wonch doesn't hit the same if you're watching.
Yeah,
TV,
I'm gonna go become the general manager of St. Bonaventure. Like that's what I'm gonna do.
I feel like that's a rational response to misidentifying Gradey Dick's green Halloween costume.
No, I put my journalistic reputation on that one, man.
That's crazy.
All right, Bobby Webster, please. I'm sure Jerome can flash up the photo here for
Jerome,
the YouTube
please
audience.
Put a picture of Bobby Webster.
So
and his
what the hell was Bobby Webster, please?
I believe Bobby Webster was Tim Burton's version of Willy Wonka.
Oh, okay.
I did ask him about the costume.
Okay.
And he did say it was also Lindsey Dunn, investigative reporter over at City News.
Yeah, actual investigative.
Actually did talk to Bobby about the costume itself. But yeah, he was going as Willy Wonka. He had like the purple suit and like
there
the
we
top hat.
That was a standout costume.
Halloween for the Raptors at Castellano. Number one, I'm actually really happy they actually continue it because it was Pascal who took it on for a long time. And obviously he got traded. So who was going to take it on? I think RJ was the one who hosted it this year. It's just nice. You know what I mean? It's a good team building thing. It's good to, it's always silly to see like the Raptors in their different little costumes. And
no, I just want to give a shout out. You mentioned Pascal. I think around the NBA, he won Halloween. He's always taken Halloween very seriously. This year, he was Andre 3000 from the Speaker Box Love Below era. Shot a whole video, photo shoot. So shouts to Pascal, man. 50 Cent was a big one for him.
Oh, huge.
Yeah, so he always takes Halloween very seriously.
Maybe Halloween to Pascal is what NBA Media Day is to Jimmy Butler.
Oh, to you? Oh, yeah, to Jimmy Butler. Yeah, like he takes it more seriously than anyone else.
Yeah. And also Pascal's social game has really stepped up.
Man. Whoever's over there.
That's noticeable change.
Doing a really good job. Pascal, let's work on something together.
Oh,
and Kalani, let's get 2 chains.
We begging Kalani for chains.
I'm trying to 2 chains like Atlanta right now. Lastly, before we wrap up, the Milwaukee Bucks are in deep trouble. They're off to a 1-5 start. Got beat at the buzzer last night by Donovan Mitchell at home in a game where Dame Lillard went 10 of 15 from 3 and scored 41 points. Yeah, things are looking bad. There's reports already that Giannis is reportedly eyeing Brooklyn and Miami as potential destinations.
Okay, why is he eyeing Brooklyn, man? What?
You don't want to play for Joe Tsai? Yeah.
Ain't no way he eyeing Brooklyn.
Honestly, Giannis,
only eyeing in Brooklyn is evil.
Honestly, if you're eyeing Brooklyn, just come to Toronto, man. Like,
why are you eyeing Brooklyn?
No, but if you're you're willing to wait a couple years, let the team build back up, then just come to Toronto. Miami makes a lot of sense. I think, in
Sure, I
terms
guess,
of,
yeah. No, Miami does make a lot of
Miami
sense for
makes a
sure.
lot of sense. So yeah, the Bucks are talking about playing Andre Jackson and AJ
Mm.
Greenmore as a
Oh,
solution.
that's their three
Yeah,
stacks.
and they're wondering if Chris Middleton's return from injury could potentially solve their problems. If we're doing a
Sure.
vibes check ranking on them, they are 30th right now, tied with the Sixers.
Oh,
So
man.
yeah, Milwaukee, where do the Bucks go from here, man?
I have no idea.
Mhm.
This team has, like, shot all their bullets. Like, this is the team that they got. Like, they moved heaven and earth to get Dame over to Milwaukee. Before that, they traded a lot of their assets to get, Dame or sorry, to get Drew Holiday, which actually worked out. They got the championship, obviously, but, like, this is it. Like, they don't have other assets. They don't have young players that they play. They don't have a style that's going to develop these young players. They don't really have a coach that's really going to be like Doc Rivers, not known for like playing young guys and like really getting them,
Bill, I just thought
into.
bringing in Darvin Ham would just really help Torian Prince. I like the chemistry that these two guys had in LA, but hey, man, I'm happy to be back doing podcasts. Like, it was cool coaching for 4 months. Giannis and Dame just like never talked. I never really understood that, but I'm happy to be back. Let's go golfing with Larry David, man.
Yo, it's the funniest thing is if you listen to Bill, he's like, "Yeah, man, Doc just doesn't care anymore." And I'm like, "Oh,"
It's like, who's his source, Doc?
I'm like, "Wow."
He's got
I mean, how
Austin
do you
Rivers
know?
on the payroll.
He got multiple sources. He's Wanj, man.
Yeah, so Bucks are in serious trouble. This is serious trouble.
Bucks are in really serious
Okay.
trouble. I feel like, especially, look, they have the talent to sort of pull together and like play at a higher level than this. Clearly, they're playing below their talent, but they've already changed their coach. It would be ridiculous to change the coach again. And like, it's not like any one of the staff is like, you know what I mean? It's not one of those situations where like, okay, you fired the head coach, but you got like an assistant coach ready. Like, this isn't like you fired Dwayne Casey, Nick Nurse, come on down. Like, what are you gonna come on down? Darvin Ham?
He might be next. But I think this is like
Oh,
this is a
man.
critical moment, and it's gonna be not like a defining moment. Like, Giannis has won a championship, but this is gonna be part of how we talk about Giannis and Dame. Like, you guys are two super talented guys. Like, you got to pull
Yeah.
this together somehow. Like, even if
But they don't have chemistry.
I know,
man.
but like, I know this was kind of a forced partnership. Dame was
Yeah.
not expecting to come to Milwaukee, but this is on Giannis too. Like, you guys got to make it work.
Yeah.
Like, you
Right.
clearly have put pressure on the front office to make these moves, to
Right.
bring a superstar like Dame. And like, you guys have to exhaust every possibility to make it work. And it doesn't feel like they've had even just that sit down conversation of like, hey, listen, like, the rest of the roster is pretty trash, but like, we got the two of us. Like, we can at least be like an above average team in the East here. Like, there's no way they should be 1-5. Anyways,
there is no way they should be 1-5, but also like literally half the roster is 30.
well, I don't know basketball
It's
players
crazy.
like that, but when I see the solution being playing Andre Jackson and AJ Green, I know a team is in trouble. That's
No,
I know
the
they're in
team
trouble.
is a crazy situation to look at this team. And I feel like, I mean, I don't feel sympathy for the Bucks because they've had a lot of success. It's not like they've never done it, but like when you're talking about like Torian Prince is going to step in and be a big contributor for you, Gary Trent Jr., man, we love you, Gary, bro, but it's not been a good start for Gary whatsoever.
Man.
For like, if Gary has another bad year, like he might like, I guess he'll get another minimum. I guess.
Yeah, he's young enough. He's gonna
But,
get a
like,
couple more chances like that. Yeah.
But it's crazy how bad it's been so
Yeah.
far. And like, I don't know, like it's still Brooke Lopez, it's still Pat Connaughton, DeLon Wright. Like, it's just,
Yeah.
man, Pat Connaughton's shooting 29%. Like, bro, what am I looking at? Brooke Lopez 37%. My question to you is, who's in more trouble?
Damn, everybody's shooting their age.
Yo, they're 3% below their age percentage, man.
Man.
Who's in more trouble, Philadelphia or Milwaukee?
Oh, Milwaukee for sure, man. I think
Yeah.
when Embiid comes back and when the Sixers roster is whole, they're gonna go on a run and they'll be fine. Like, that team is gonna stabilize.
Okay.
I think
When is the team going to be whole? Because they've been very mysterious about. Obviously, they signed Paul George. He hasn't played yet. They obviously Embiid. He played in the Olympics, and all of a sudden now he's injured again. Like, there's always a mystery. There's a mystery around.
I know.
Status.
I just think the overall roster in Philadelphia is just better. Like, even if just Paul George comes back,
I agree.
I think they're gonna be fine. Whereas the Bucks, to me, this is a team that already was showing these signs of fracturing last season. The new coach didn't help at all, and now you're looking at a team that just doesn't seem together. And
Mhm.
it just seems like, yeah, they've kind of not like quit, but like they've almost just kind of convinced themselves that like, hey, this is just not going to work. Like the way they got blown out, who was it, by Boston the other night? Like it was super
Yeah.
discouraging. Just like there was no fight in that team. And
Mhm.
if like Dame doesn't want to be there, then just maybe trade him. Like just trade him to Miami then. Like
I feel like Miami's probably like, nah, we're good. Actually, guess what? Jovic not even on the table no more
yeah,
for you.
and maybe you got to look at like obviously trading Giannis as well. I mean, the big bombshell would be if they had the balls to trade Giannis right now, like mid-season, like at the trade deadline, and trade Dame and just start this rebuild. But I do think
There's no other way because like
yeah,
Milwaukee is like a wasteland. Like we talk about the Clippers,
yeah,
like they've exhausted a lot of their assets. Like Milwaukee's the same way.
yeah, and with
And the
listen,
only way you get those back is if you
yeah,
actually trade your players. It's just like Brooke Lopez not getting you more than like maybe a
yeah,
first,
and
maybe.
with superstars, like when there's smoke, there's like always fire. Like once you start hearing
Yeah,
these
right.
rumblings, you can go back through every single scenario. It's
Mhm.
very rare that it doesn't end up in a breakup. So once you
Right.
start hearing these destinations, once these whispers are out there, Giannis himself floated it before the season with the
True.
most like roundabout trade requests of like, oh, if we don't play well, they might trade me. I'm just an innocent little guy here in the Bucks organization.
No, me? No, no, no.
Yeah,
I'm
if I
just,
don't perform, oh my god, man, I might be in trouble here. They might ship me out of
wow.
Milwaukee.
Have you heard how old and upset this team is? Like maybe we get traded. Like
But all I'm saying is
yeah,
the Thanasis curse is on, man. Thanasis not on the roster.
yo,
Things are falling
the,
apart.
the whole team is the nasty
Yeah,
man.
by the
Now
way, before we
what's
wrap
up?
up, the Cavs who beat the Bucks last night
Hmm.
are now 7-0. The
Yep.
East runs through Cleveland right now.
Oh,
And
okay.
just want
All right.
everybody to know that Kenny Atkinson is 5-1 on Betway right now to win
Oh.
Coach of the Year. I know before the season we were drumming up buzz for some other coaches, including Joe
Hmm.
Mazzulla. Who knows? Maybe even Tom Thibodeau if the Knicks, finish first in the East. It's still early, but if you believe that the Cavs are going to sustain this, obviously not win every game, but like if
Hmm.
you think they're going to end up finishing with, say, a top 2, top 3 seed in the East, Kenny Atkinson is a new coach helping the Cavs make a jump if they win 50 plus games. I think there could be
Hmm.
a lot of momentum here for Kenny Atkinson, currently the favorite now to win Coach of the
Wow.
Year based on the early season start at 5-1. So make sure you hit the QR code, check out all your basketball betting odds at Betway.
Man, honestly, shouts to Kenny Atkinson. Like, we saw him obviously for the home opener in Toronto. I think the number one thing he's gotten Evan Mobley to play at a higher level. Although a higher level for Evan Mobley is still 17.7 points. Like, he's the higher level
You're
is
gonna
he's
be
scoring
hating
two
on
more.
Evan Mobley when he's like
Oh,
in the NBA Finals, Game 7, man. It's like he
yeah,
didn't
but
get
did he
a
hit the shot?
quadruple double like Tim Duncan.
Well, let's not compare a 17.7 points to Tim Duncan just yet, buddy. Like, we just gotta wait on. We just gotta wait a
Yo,
little
Bill
bit, man.
Simmons
Like,
told me for a whole year he was the next Tim Duncan.
yeah, he was like, yo, he's like, he reminds me of KG. I'm like, you're a Celtic fan. That man brought you the only title you guys have for like 30 years, man. You better not be comparing Evan Mobley to
No,
that.
but Cavs
Now,
look good right now, man.
Cavs do look good really now. And I think like obviously they've gotten their team a lot healthier now. I think he's done a really good job coaching that team too. Also, shouts to him. He speaks French. That was sick.
That's right. He
He
was
was
he was
in
having a
pregame
back
in
and
Toronto.
forth with Mike and
Mike from
Mike and
L'Express
the
was
rest of the
like,
Montreal reporters or the
yeah,
French
yeah, yeah.
reporters that were there. Yeah, because
Yeah,
Kenny
yeah.
was on the France national team as an
He
assistant coach.
was. Yeah.
So
And I think Vincent Collet is now either consulting or some sort of like involvement with the Cavs as well. So there's a bit of reciprocity there. But like,
freedom
yeah.
fries. Yeah.
Freedom fries. Yeah, I mean, speaking of freedom fries, last stat I wanted to give you because I did look up the Sixers roster just really quickly.
Mm.
Guess who is leading the NBA in minutes played?
Who right now? Tyrese Maxey?
Tyrese Maxey
Yeah.
leading the NBA at 41 minutes per game.
Yo, Nick Nurse back
Once
to his
again,
old
Nick
tricks, man.
Once again, Nick Nurse, his point guard is averaging 41 minutes per game. He's also shooting 38% from the field. Like this is actually
To be
like,
fair, their number 2 option right now is like Kelly Oubre.
no, their number 2 option is fully Kelly Oubre. Like when you look at their roster right now, it's Tyrese is taking 26 a game. Kelly Oubre is taking 16. Nobody else is even within 10. Caleb Martin is their third option.
Yeah. Well,
So like Sixers, I mean, that's why I said they're a little trouble too, because like the vibes don't look great. You know what I mean? Like if stuff goes south with a Nick Nurse team, like it'll go south. I'll just say that much.
I still think they're gonna stabilize. I think
Okay.
they'll be fine. I think the Bucks are in real trouble. But yeah,
Yeah.
we'll obviously have the React Pods this week as the Raptors go out on this road trip. We are heading to LA. Super excited about that. Fingers crossed. I think we're gonna be getting this Intuit Dome tour. And the Nick Batum jersey.
I gotta delete so much Clipper slander over there.
Please don't even mention it. The Nick Batum jersey is in the duffel. I think what I'm gonna do at the game is just get any Clippers fan who's wearing a jersey to just sign it. I just want a Batum jersey signed by a bunch of Clippers fans.
This guy just wants a randomly graffiti jersey, huh? Why don't you get Nick Batum to sign it? It's not out of the realm of possibility.
I'm not gonna be like,
right
hey,
now.
Dennis Rogers, Clippers PR. Can we get an interview with Norman? Also, can Batum sign this?
It would be pretty sick if we can land an interview with
You
Norm.
sound like one of my relatives from China right now when I was covering the finals in San Francisco between like the Cavs and the Warriors. And they were like, hey, can you just go in the locker room and tell Steph to sign this basketball? I'm like, no.
Well, once again, I have to say that at the Vince Carter ceremony, there was somebody who showed up in a full Vince Carter jersey, which to me is still a first. Like,
Have you identified this person? Yeah.
I'm not going to identify this person,
Okay.
but I'm also going to be on the record by saying I am far from the bastion of like journalists. You know what I mean? Like I'm not like who's the guy Robinson from the Orlando Sentinel or whatever?
Who are you talking about?
Josh Robinson. I'm not Josh Robbins.
Oh,
like
Josh
president of the
Robbins.
PW.
He's since moved on to 3 different jobs and believe he's at the Athletic now.
Okay, well, sure. I
Wait.
mean, every journalist works at
Jerome
Athletic,
might
apparently.
correct me on that, but if Jerome's still there.
like it's not like Howard Beck from the president of the PWHA, whatever.
Oh
but,
yeah,
like,
PBWA. Hey Pete,
Okay,
hey
whatever.
Beck, I'm gonna be reaching out. I got a couple things I want to talk to you about.
What up, Beck?
Yeah, what up, Beck? I got a couple things I want to clue you in on.
Okay, interesting. Yeah, we'll talk.
Anyways,
But yeah, anyway,
It's time
this
to
has been
wrap.
fun. It's time to wrap. Thanks everyone for listening. And once again, like I said at the top of the pod, if you enjoyed this program, please continue to write reviews.
yeah,
on
let's see
Apple in
those W's in
particular.
the
It
chat.
helps-
Put the W's in the chat, man.
Goodness, man, this man watches Scotty Barnes streams for 8 hours, and what happens to him, man? But yeah, appreciate everyone for sending in all your feedback. We've been getting a lot of support from the fans, from the Raptor community. It feels really great, and it's really validating to keep going on this front. So thanks everyone for listening. This has been the Hell Walker podcast presented by Betway.